for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Welcome, income hackers. This is your host, Ryan G. Wright. This podcast is for individuals and families who are interested in fast tracking their financial success. You'll hear experts discussing topics like generating a residual cash flow, building wealth through real estate, financial literacy, creating a family legacy, and overcoming your fears. If you get value out of this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. BRRRR, what the heck is it? Am I just getting cold in here, or what's this BRRRR thing?
You might be getting cold. Fall is coming. But yeah, so BRRRR it's an acronym, and it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And so the great thing about this strategy is that you're basically able to invest some money in a property, in a distressed property. You're able to rehab it, which is the R. So you buy it, the distressed property is the B. You rehab it, which is the first R. And that rehab allows you to basically increase the value of the house, right? So if you can increase it by 20% or so, you can then take a mortgage out of that, pull out all of the money that you initially put into it, rent it out. So now you've got a cash flowing rental. You pulled all of your money out again. And so now you've got a mortgage on it, but you've got the full investment that you made. And then you can go ahead and repeat the process because you basically just recycling your money.
Yeah, it's awesome. And to give some clarification on this, this is a property improvement or enhancement type play, whereas the house hacking we're talking about really isn't. It can be, but it's not necessarily designed for that originally. So this one is getting something that's in need of improvement, forced appreciation by putting work into that property, and then being able to refinance and get all or most of your money out of it. What's the return on something, Craig? If I have all my money back and I'm still cash flowing, what's my return on my investment?
It'd be infinite, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if I have no money into it, I'm making a cash flow, my cash on cash return is infinite because I'm getting money for money I didn't even invest. I may be taking on a little risk because I signed on a loan, but my cash that I put into it is infinite. And I think it's really killer. When we really got our start, we were getting subprime loans. We had great credit, but we were getting subprime loans because they would allow you to do it back then. And we'd get the purchase, we'd get an 80-20 type loan. And then we would, get the property. And unfortunately, in those days, we had to do some of the work or put up the money, do the work ourselves. But still, we had very little into that property, and then we'd refinance later. But BRRRRs can happen a lot quicker now. What are you seeing from banks on the refinance from the time they're acquired? Is there any type of holding period, or is it specific to areas, or what are you kind of seeing on that?
Yeah, typically there's this seasoning period. I think it's like a 6-month seasoning period. So after you start generating income from it, they want to see 6 months of that rental income. And once they see 6 months of that rental income, they'll then allow you to refinance it. So it might take you maybe a year to actually pull all of your money back out. But in most cases, you are able to. Now, if the market tanks and you drop, there's a risk there, right? Where if it's that holding period is that long and the market decides to tank next year or in 5 months from now, then maybe you can't quite refinance. But the idea here is that you're adding so much value in the rehab that it doesn't really matter what the market does. And if the market does decline, it's definitely a headwind for you. But, maybe instead of putting all of your money back out, you've got this property now for $5,000 or $10,000 in, which is still great.
Yeah, makes sense. So you probably don't want to pull money off your credit card to do the BRRRR method if something could change. I mean, some people have. I know lots of people that have done something like that, but you just need to be a little careful because on the refinance, you might not get out everything you're thinking. And you may. So it's part of the risk reward. It's something to be careful of. So off the air, you were saying this BRRRR you're doing has been troublesome. Tell us about your experience. This is your first BRRRR deal, right?
Yep.
Tell us about it. What happened? What are some of the obstacles? What income hacker mistakes have you made that our income hackers can learn from?
Oh man, I feel like I'm learning all of my mistakes just in this one deal. So this is a property.
And let me pause just for a minute. Craig's a real estate agent. Craig's, has been around this. He's done the house hacking. So Craig's not new to real estate. So what I want to really point out for all of our listeners is every time you try new strategies or do new things, and sometimes even just new projects, if you go from a duplex to a single family, there's always going to be challenges. Even the same product, there's going to be challenges. And real estate's all about overcoming obstacles and being a good problem solver. I believe the best problem solvers are the best real estate investors. But I really want to point out, easy street button just doesn't exist. You've got to work through challenges. So I just want to preface, with that, because I think it's easy for people to say, oh, Craig, he's got all this background, everything. I'm sure every transaction he does is just so easy. It's not. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this one has been a disaster for sure. So I bought, me and my partner, we bought a property in Jacksonville for like $38,000, right? It was
Mississippi or Florida, just out of curiosity?
Florida.
Okay.
And so 38,000, and it was totally run down in shambles, and we decided that we would fix it up, basically just redo the whole thing. And so we hired a contractor who would come in and do all of this work, but he actually was not a licensed contractor. He was just kind of like a handyman that I was referred to from my agent, and he ended up being a complete disaster, but we'll get to that in a little bit because there was a bigger disaster before that. The first thing we had to do was put a new roof on the house.
Okay.
And a typical roof for that size house is probably about usually 10 grand. And that's what he quoted me, was 10, 11 grand. He goes in, finishes the roof, and I guess there's a lot of surprises, ends up charging me 30 grand.
What?
Already I'm 20 grand over. And I was asking him, like, okay, like, what did you do? And I guess there's a whole lot of wood rot and a lot of stuff they had to replace and all of these kind of things. So right off the bat, that's a huge expense that I didn't really expect.
If the quality of the work isn't done right, it doesn't matter. Like, it's going to cost you so much more. It hangs the cabinets crooked, or, and maybe a picture, it looks good, but then when you go in person, it looks horrendous. The cost of having to pull that down, rehang it, do whatever, is so much more than just getting it right the first time. So it's important to stay on top of those. What would you do different in a situation like this? What have you learned?
So number one, I would definitely do a better job at vetting the contractor. I basically kind of just trusted my agent and went with her recommendation. I should have called for his references. I should have asked for some of his work. The thing with this contractor is that he was supposedly good at the contracting stuff, but not very good at like the business side of it. So customer service or money management, stuff like that. And so he was basically robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I'm Peter. So yeah, that's one thing I would do. That's pretty much like the bulk of it. I would also have basically a standard of what I wanted done, like a scope of work, what I wanted done, and exact products, like, the exact cabinet SKU, the exact everything that I wanted to be done, and give them to the contractor, so he knows exactly what to do rather than having to ask and have to get stuff done. Make sure that he's licensed and insured.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, the biggest thing really, if I had to pick one thing, what all comes down to is just vetting the contractor and making sure it's a good deal. Making sure that he's actually who he says he is. And also not necessarily going for the cheapest property, but maybe going for one with something more expensive that maybe just needs cosmetic updates, cabinets, kitchens,
so not as big of a rehab.
Right. Rather than needing a roof, new plumbing, electrical, literally everything needed to be redone. So it's just been wild.
If you got value out of our discussion today, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. Also, please share with a friend. Nothing is more valuable than creating financial friends who are like-minded. You can do that by inviting them to listen to the Income Hacker podcast. Bye for now, and make it a very profitable day.